What if the drug you're taking to protect your heart is slowly killing your drive, your clarity, your sex life, and no one ever told you why? This isn't just a video about cholesterol, it's about what you've been told to believe and what that belief might be stealing from you. You were told to trust the system, trust the lab work, trust the prescription. But what happens when that prescription makes you feel worse, tired, foggy, flat? Like a slightly duller, more exhausted version of yourself. And the best anyone can offer is, well, your numbers look good. That's not medicine, that's maintenance. And if you're alive but not living, what are we even doing? I'm Doc Strong. I've been a physician for over 2 decades. I've got more board certifications than you can shake a stick at. You can look them up if you like. But that's not the point. What matters is this. I've seen what happens when people are overprescribed and underinformed. They lose their energy, their edge, their fire. And I've had enough of that. So today we're pulling the curtain back on statins, cholesterol, and the beautifully marketed lie that's been sold to millions of people who deserve better. Because you weren't made to coast. You weren't made to be quiet and compliant while your health slides sideways. You were made to live strong, and it starts right here. Let's start here. Statins aren't evil. They have a purpose when used correctly. If you've had a heart attack, a stroke, a stent, or documented cardiovascular disease, statins can help. That's called secondary prevention, treating people after they had an event. But what we're doing now is different. We're putting people on statins just because one number, usually LDL, is slightly above the target. And they've had no symptoms, no history, no cardiovascular disease. That's called primary prevention. And this is where the data starts to fall apart. Let's talk about something almost no one tells patients, NNT, or numbers needed to treat. It's one of the most important numbers in medicine, and it tells you how many people need to take a drug for one person to benefit. For statins used in primary prevention, that's people with no history of heart disease, the NNT is somewhere around 100 to 250. That means you need to put 100 or 250 people on a statin every day for 5 years just to prevent one non-fatal heart attack. Let that sink in. 249 people get no measurable benefit, but they get all the risks of side effects. And here's where it gets even more revealing. When you look at women specifically, the numbers get worse. Studies show that for women in primary prevention, the NNT can be in the 300s, meaning 300 women would have to take a statin for 5 years to prevent a single non-fatal cardiac event. And yet, they're being prescribed statins left and right despite having lower baseline risk and smaller absolute benefit. So if you're a healthy woman with slightly elevated cholesterol and no prior heart disease, you're not getting prevention, you're getting statistical camouflage with all the side effects and very little chance of personal benefit. Common side effects include muscle pain and weakness, the most reported issue. Not just a sore calf or shoulder, it's the deep nagging ache that doesn't go away. The kind of fatigue that makes your workout feel heavier, slower, less like you. Chronic fatigue, the kind that doesn't fix with sleep. You're dragging through the day, wondering why your tank's always on E, and no one's connecting it to the pill you're taking every single morning. Brain fog, that word everyone uses but no one explains. You're slower, forgetful, distracted. You're not you, and the worst part, you start to think it's just aging. Erectile dysfunction. Let's say it plainly. You're fixing a cholesterol number and wrecking your sex life. Libido drops, function drops, confidence gone. And no one tells you it could be the statin. Insulin resistance. Your blood sugar creeps up. Weight around the middle increases. The beginnings of metabolic dysfunction, often overlooked, often preventable. New onset type 2 diabetes, especially in people who already have borderline blood sugars. The same medication you were told would protect your heart may be pushing you toward a diagnosis of diabetes. And once it starts, that risk compounds everything else. And let's not forget, type 2 diabetes is one of the biggest risk factors for cardiovascular disease. So we're giving people a drug to prevent heart attacks that increases the likelihood of developing the condition that causes heart attacks. That's not prevention, that's a loop. And it's making people sicker. These aren't rare. They're not in case you're unlucky. They're common, but no one's connecting the dots because no one's telling the truth. We've been trained to think of cholesterol as the villain, the thing that clogs arteries, the thing to wipe off the map. But here's the truth. Cholesterol is essential. You don't survive without it. You definitely don't thrive without it. It's the raw material your body uses to build. Testosterone, estrogen, cortisol, aldosterone, vitamin D, bile acids. It's also critical for brain structure, nerve conduction, memory, mood regulation, cell membrane stability, and immune function. When your cholesterol levels drop too low, especially below 160, in some studies below 150, you're not just being safe, you're removing the raw materials your body needs to function. And here's what can happen when cholesterol is too low. Hormonal changes, low testosterone, estrogen, and libido. Adrenal dysfunction. You can't make enough cortisol to handle stress. Depression and anxiety, which has been linked by multiple studies to low cholesterol. Cognitive impairment, memory issues, brain fog, and slow processing. Increased all-cause mortality in elderly patients with a total cholesterol level under 160. Suicidality, documented associations with cholesterol under 150. Weakened cell membranes, slower healing and reduced resilience. Poor nerve insulation, higher risk of neuropathy and nerve dysfunction. So when I see someone come in with a total cholesterol of 148, I don't celebrate. I ask, what's breaking under the surface? Because they're not just lowering LDL, they're starving the whole system. And I've seen what it looks like in real people. People who look good on paper, but feel like they're falling apart on the inside. Let me tell you about a few patients, all real stories. One guy, mid-40s, former athlete, on testosterone therapy. His cholesterol dropped to 148 on a statin. His doctor told him, great job. Meanwhile, he had no energy, no drive, flat libido, struggling to build muscle despite doing everything else right. Why? Because his body didn't have the raw materials it needed. He was cholesterol starved. His hormone system was running on fumes. Another patient, early 60s, active, no cardiac history, put on a statin after one borderline result. She came in complaining of memory lapses and joint pain. We reviewed the data, tapered her off carefully, cleaned up her lifestyle, and within 2 months, her mind was sharper, her energy came back, she felt alive again. These stories are everywhere. We're not just managing numbers, we're managing people. Statins make people feel safe, like they've taken care of it. But they haven't. They haven't fixed their diet. They haven't addressed stress. They haven't trained their body. They're just treating a number, and often the real problems are still smoldering underneath. What you should be focusing on? Well, you should be trying to prevent heart disease. You want to live longer, stronger, better? Then forget about the statin for a while and focus on what actually works. Build muscle, lose visceral fat, walk every day, fix your sleep, eat real food, get outside, control your insulin, address inflammation. You want labs that really matter? Test your fasting insulin, high sensitivity CRP, homocysteine, ApoB if you want to look at lipids in a real context. That's how you prevent disease. That's how you take control. So how did we end up here? Why are we handing out statins like candy, celebrating total cholesterol under 150 and never asking if the person in front of us actually feels alive? It's not just doctors, it's the system they're working in. And most of it was never designed to help. We have clinical guidelines based on outdated risk models. Models that drive statin prescriptions that are built on old school risk models, models that were created decades ago that are focused heavily on LDL and total cholesterol and that largely ignore what we now know what matters more. Insulin resistance, inflammation, body composition, VO2 max, and metabolic flexibility. These models don't ask about your strength, they don't look at your sleep, your testosterone, or your stress load. They just see a number and say, statin. It's not personalized, it's not current, and it's not working. We have pharma-funded education that teaches doctors to treat numbers, not people. Most doctors continue their education through conferences and CME courses. And the truth is, a lot of that is funded by the pharmaceutical industry. So what do they get taught? They learn how to manage dyslipidemia. They learn to hit targets. LDL under 100, HDL above 40, triglycerides under 150, box checked, prescription written. You walk in with brain fog, fatigue, low sex drive. Maybe your cholesterol is 160, maybe 180. You walk out with a statin, but no one stops to ask, how do you feel? What's your energy like? Are you waking up with purpose or just dragging through your day? Because the system doesn't teach that. It teaches them to treat lab values, not people. Insurance systems pay for pills, but not conversation. Here's the part no one wants to talk about. Your insurance will pay for a 90-day refill of your statin without blinking, but it won't cover a 60-minute conversation about your lifestyle, your habits, your mental clarity, your hormones. If there's no billing code, it doesn't happen. So what do you get? A prescription and a see you in 6 months. And all the real root cause work, it never even starts. Burned out doctors. We have 10-minute visits, EMR, survival mode, and look, I'm not here to bash your doctor. Most of them want to help you. But they're underwater. They're seeing 20, 25, even 30 patients a day. They've got 10 minutes per visit. And half of that is spent clicking through EMRs and fighting insurance. So when they look at your lab, see an LDL over 130 and write the statin, it's not because they don't care, it's because they're in survival mode, just like you. What you really need to know, the lag between data and practice. Here's what most people don't realize. Even when medicine gets something right, it takes forever to change. The research may be clear, but it can take 15 to 20 years for that research to show up in everyday practice. And I've seen that firsthand. Back in 1999, the TRIC trial came out. This was a big ICU study that showed transfusing blood above a hemoglobin of 7 could actually increase mortality, increase death. That was a clear shift. I graduated in 2002. The data was already out there. But even now, two decades later, I still see the standard not being met. And this is exactly what's happening with statins. We already have tools to calculate 5 and 10-year cardiovascular risk. The ASCVD calculator exists. Guidelines have evolved. They now recommend statins based on actual risk, not just LDL numbers. But here's the problem. You have to know that the change happened to follow it. And most docs don't because they are not trained to look for the shift. They're not given the time or the tools to keep up. So what happens? You walk in with a clean lifestyle, a little borderline LDL, and you still walk out with a statin because your doctor is following the playbook from 2010. So when your doctor pats you on the back for a total cholesterol of 148, without ever asking you how you feel, how you move, how you live, it's not personal, it's structural. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's right, and just because it's accepted doesn't mean it's working. If you're on a statin and wondering if you actually need it, or if you've just been told to go on one without much conversation, these are the questions you need to ask. And these aren't aggressive, they're not confrontational, they're what any informed patient should ask before taking a medication that changes your biochemistry every single day. Question 1. What would my actual risk be without the statin? Ask for your ASCVD. That's atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease risk score. It gives a 10-year risk estimate using age, blood pressure, smoking status, and lipid values. You might be at 3% or less. That changes the whole conversation. Question 2. What's the NNT for someone like me? That's the number needed to treat. For primary prevention, especially in women, it can be over 300. That's not impressive. That's math you deserve to know. Question 3. Do I really need this, or are we just treating a number? Is this about your LDL being 132, or about your actual health? Ask your doctor to explain the reasoning, not the protocol, the why. Question 4. Could the symptoms I'm having be from the statin? This one matters. Muscle pain, fatigue, brain fog, low libido, blood sugar creeping up. If you feel off, don't assume it's just age. Ask, because side effects are common and often dismissed. Question 5. What are my alternatives? You can lower risk without medication in many cases. Reduce visceral fat, fix insulin resistance, lift heavy, sleep better, eat like your life depends on it, because it does. Address low testosterone if needed. No statin required. Question 6. Can we track other markers to get a fuller picture? Fasting insulin, high sensitivity CRP, homocysteine, ApoB if needed. Because total cholesterol and LDL, they don't tell the whole story. Again, these questions are difficult. They're necessary. If you're going to take a drug every day, you deserve to know exactly why, what it's doing, and what it might be taking from you. And if your doctor doesn't have time for the conversation, find one who does. Because your health isn't just their protocol, it's your life. And you have every right to take it seriously. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to give you your power back. Your health is not a number. It's not a flowchart. It's not a checkbox in someone else's system. It's your energy, your focus, your clarity, your ability to wake up every day and feel like yourself. And yes, statins might be part of that story for some people, but they're not the whole story. And in a lot of cases, they're not even in the right chapter. You weren't made to coast. You weren't made to survive and check boxes. You were made to live strong, to build strength, not borrow it, to thrive, not medicate away your fire. And the only way forward is with truth, even if that truth makes some people uncomfortable. Drop a comment if this hit home, if you've been on a statin or pushed toward one and something just felt off. Let's talk about it, because this is the conversation most people aren't having, and we're having it right here. This is where we ask better questions. This is where we take back our health. This is where we live strong. Have you or someone you love been told to take a statin? What happened next? Drop your story below. I'm reading every comment. If this hit home, tell me in the comments. Your story might be the one that wakes someone else up. I'm Doc Strong. Thanks for joining me on Living Strong. Stay strong, stay focused, and I'll see you in the next one.